Here's a minor horror story. One time I got into a game with some people in the tabletop role-playing game forum to play Traveler. What happened in the game is not important, but the main issue was that most of the players were in England, and I was in America. And the only time we could agree on was 3 a.m. for me, which... Guys, there are ways to play in England and America at reasonable times. Like, many ways. I played a few games, and I was, well, already a beginner of tabletop role-playing games, so also being dead tired was not a good combination. The worst session is when I literally just fell asleep in the middle of the game. Like, I woke up in front of my laptop realizing, oh crap, I fell asleep. The game fell apart soon after. I always felt bad for literally falling asleep in the middle of the game, and that's why I never play with someone on opposite time zones ever again.
Brothers, this threat has threatened us too long to be tolerated any longer. It is time to ascend the mountain and put an end to... Hey, Sarnath the Glorious, you there, dude? You there? Why is he not moving? Why are you not moving? Does anyone know what's going on?
Hey, there's a Discord add-on that lets you copy-paste a timestamp that changes depending on time zone. It's a godsend if you're scheduling across the world, but yeah, as a guy who plays with a lot of Australians, I understand your pain. I used to watch your channel a couple of years back and recently rediscovered it and have binge-watched RPG horror stories in the background while drawing. It reminded me of a story that happened to me as a stupid teenager, and I thought it might be just bizarre enough for a fun read. It's a tale of weird secrecy, awful adults, and baffling conflict resolution methods by the older group members. It was an interesting ride, and I ended up dropping it due to something that might feel trivial, but it was a big deal to me. You can be the judge. The story is from a while ago when I was 16 and not yet into Dungeons & Dragons, but I was already obsessed with the play-by-post world. At that point, I learned that my mom had actually been part of an in-person roleplay group with some of her longtime friends. Bro, you know that moment where you look at your parents and finally realize, oh my god, you guys have hobbies? Bro, that was me when I realized that my Catholic Filipino mom liked Metallica. Crazy day. Anyway, my mom roleplays. She put in a good word for me after realized I was getting curious about it. I was added to their WhatsApp group chat and invited to come along to future meetings. Right away, there was some inexplicable secrecy and strict rules around the table. The group gathered in a seemingly empty house in the city center, and the members weren't supposed to talk about the games, nor about the place, which to my understanding was owned by the Dungeon Master. I just accepted that pretty easily. What do you mean you accepted that pretty easily? It sounds like you're in a cult. What are you talking about? Checking your phone or mentioning anything that didn't exist in the setting during the game was a bannable offense. Sure, immersion, whatever. Anyone who was late to the session had to pay a fine to a communal fund, which would be split amongst the people who showed up on time at the end of the session, which was a unique way to enforce punctuality. All of this didn't seem bad on its own, but could have warned me about what eventually would become the catalyst for my separation from the group. What are you talking about? This sounds horrible!
Oh my god. What's going on? Do not panic, child. There are a list of rules that we must go over before we begin our... Rules? You guys just broke, like, national rules! But kidnapping me! What the hell's wrong with you? Would you get over that already, please? Look. The first rule is that you may never speak of this place to anyone outside of this group. The second rule is that... Whoa, am I being inducted into, like, the Illuminati or something like that? I've always wanted to do that. Alright, you know what? Actually, kidnapping thing is completely okay. Sign me up. Just... What are we doing here? Our secret society is dedicated to playing Dungeons and Dragons! Oh. Okay. You look disappointed. I was kind of hoping we'd be like overthrowing the government or assassinating billionaires, but well, we could do all those things like in the game. Yes.
Despite me being a teen and most of the other members being in their 30s and 40s, the age gap didn't seem to be an issue. I did my best to behave and put up with anything from the adults quietly, as you tend to learn to do as a queer kid in a conservative country, so much so that having to listen to one of the other players talk about how tolerance to gay people was her least favorite thing about ancient Greece, and disabled people shouldn't have support, it's just natural selection, for half an hour didn't make me want to instantly drop out. Bro got the IRL Pick Me podcast. That's wild. But hey, one of the other members' son joined the group around the same time I did, so I had a pal around my age to hang out with. Well, me wanting to have his back would end up killing my attachment to that group. One day, he and I were sent to get some snacks before session time. We couldn't find the specific brand of cookies that his mom wanted, but you know, it is what it is, no biggie. When we got back, there was a minor argument about it. I ended up taking his side, pretty politely mind you, and it seemed like nothing major, right? Wrong. In a month or so, the next time the DM announced the game and asked for the players to confirm attendance, I texted him, and he said that I should sit this one out. I asked for a reason. He said that it was because the room under the roof we usually played in was getting too hot for me to be in. I argued, bro, it was fine, that I really wanted to attend, that my mom was fine with it, which I asked her about, and yeah, she was. Denied. I was a bit disappointed, but thought nothing of it. Well, fast forward a couple of days, and I found out through my mom, who in turn found out through another player, that this was a disciplinary measure for challenging the friend's mom's authority. And oh my god, why are there so many D&D cults? Maybe the Satanic Panic was right all along! A disciplinary measure that they framed as a denial of the session without telling me the real reason, not even giving me a chance to understand that I crossed a boundary in the first place. Turns out that this was something they did on the regular, and the thought process, as described by the informant friend, went as, if they have to miss a game every time they misbehave, they can be trained to stop misbehaving. And that's the point where I kind of just lost all interest. I would say it felt dehumanizing, like they were thinking of the player's thoughts like in animals, but you can't even punish a dog a month after an event happened and expect results, so I don't really know what they were thinking. Maybe it's a silly reason to leave compared to the other attitudes in the group I mentioned above, but what do you think? On a lighter note, after some discussion with mom post me dropping out, she also left the group. She used to feel some sort of obligation to be there, and hearing an outside perspective and seeing someone else leave the toxic environment made her also internalize a version of no D&D is better than bad D&D, which I reckon took the stress off of her. Nowadays, I have a D&D group with 2 online campaigns, DM'd by 2 different members, and great communication, and life is good. The end. Hope this was something. Look, I'm sure Bob's wonderful, but why would you bring your child in that kind of environment? It's clearly sketchy. I mean, trying to grab money out of people's pockets for their lack of attendance, forcing immersion to an almost unhealthy degree, holding the games in an empty house. This sounds like the plot to a horror movie where everybody dies at the end, and I don't know what the mother's reasoning is there. Maybe the DM is just really that good, but I don't know, man. No matter how good you are as Dungeon Master, you can't be good enough to get me to tolerate this. Also, yeah, you were on point with DM's version of conflict resolution being some absolute bunk. This is the kind of thing that gets recommended by, psychology TikTok. It's dumb, stupid, and overly convoluted. You want to solve issues, how about you talk about them with the person involved, instead of pulling some BS plan that's just gonna make you look like a complete and utter idiot. Hope the rest of the group realize how much of a tool this DM was. It's definitely for the best. Things have gotten really bad with socializing. There's something about turning 30 that just drives away everyone I know. I wish I had a way to meet new people and share nerdy interests. Thank God for PhoenixFanFusion. This week's videos are sponsored by PhoenixFanFusion, one of the last big nerdy indie conventions out there. Kinda sad to say, but a lot of conventions are run by big corps nowadays. Not PhoenixFanFusion, however. It's made for fans and by fans, and that love has translated into the experience. It's the biggest pop culture convention in the Southwest for a reason. They have a massive tabletop arena for board games, Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons, it's all there. And it has a really special feature. Me! Yeah, I can only pretend to be that confident in myself. But seriously, I will be at PhoenixFanFusion, so if you want to stop by and say hi, you better grab those tickets quick. So if you want a great nerdy convention, some actual celebrities, and me, I guess, you can head down to the description down below and use the code Sunset and Meteor, and you get to go to PhoenixFanFusion on Friday for free. Yeah, don't miss out on this one. As always, supporting our sponsors does support us. Thank you so much to PhoenixFanFusion for sponsoring this week's videos. And without further ado, let's get back to the tea. For context, I started playing D&D in high school and quickly formed a group of 9 people. By the end of high school, we were down to 7 people, and by the time college started, we'd reached a solid 4 people. The passage of time, the loss of friends, the creeping realization of lonely... I'm kidding. I can't really start complaining about that until I'm like 30. 5 years later, still that same group of 4. All that to say, I have a group I play with often, and I know well, but when college started, we were in different places, and couldn't meet as much, even with Roll20. Oh, the glory days of getting out of school, walking to my house together, and just playing a session. So when I heard about the University D&D Club, it definitely piqued my interest. I heard about it from the Dungeon Master, who was looking for more players, as his game had the least number of players in the club. He was a classmate of mine and lived on the same floor as I had, and I even went over to help him out once on an assignment. And he saw all my D&D stuff on my desk, correctly assuming I played. I didn't see a reason not to join, so I agreed to check it out, and started making a character. At the table, there is Dungeon Master, another classmate of mine, Paladin, and 2 guys I don't know. Rogue, Sorcerer, a problem player in his own right, but one I'll ignore for now, and Ranger. There was also apparently a wizard in the group, but I never saw him at sessions. I was playing a Goliath Barbarian with a pretty common backstory, something I could whip up quickly without having much knowledge of the game's world, and a good thing too, because you shouldn't get too attached to the guy. The first session I played, Paladin, Ranger, and I all went down because of balancing issues. We were approaching a fortress to find ancient treasure that would help us defeat a dragon, but along the way, we were ambushed by a tribe of orcs who massacred our lowly level 3 party from a distance. I mean, how many orcs were there? Because, like, orcs aren't that crazy in base D&D. So, skill issue. Rogue managed to save Ranger and get away from them, but Paladin and I died to these orcs, and I ended up sitting there for the rest of the session making a new character while the others regrouped and met Paladin number 2, the son of the original Paladin. And by the way, this would go on for several generations and is so far my favorite thing about this game.
My name is Sergeant Levon, and you, villain, should prepare to die. Foolish swordsman. Now your blood coats my blade and is soaked into the cobblestones. None shall stand against villain. I am Sergeant Levon. What? It's time for you to meet your whoa, hey, stop. I just killed you. Your body's right there. Are you a clone or something? Are you a ghost? Cause like I'm scared of ghosts, so you know I don't think this would be fair. You are mistaken, villain. I am Levon II. You killed my father. Now prepare to die. Well, in that case, join your father in death. I will kill their entire family before I allow them to. My name is Sergeant Levon III. You killed my father and my grandfather. And if you kill me, you will need to contend with my child, who will kill you.
After a few hours, though, the session wrapped up. My barbarian was dead, and we had made no progress on the story. After that, I made an artificer, and knowing a bit about the game, I was able to give him a better story. He was a disgraced businessman from across the sea, on the run from loan sharks, and scraping up money as an adventurer in what ways he could. And things were okay for a couple of sessions. I didn't die immediately again, and we managed to beat the orcs and got to the ruin, where nothing happened. The place was just empty. Womp womp. So the next session rolls, and this starts the downward spiral that was the last 3 sessions I played. I'll break it down quickly. While leaving the ruins, we camp somewhere along the road where we are attacked by a dragon. This wouldn't normally be bad DMing, except the dragon that we're trying to beat is also hunting us down. Perhaps the ruins were a trap meant to let it know who's trying to find ways to defeat it. Not a plot point the DM used, but I thought it was a cool idea. However, what pissed me off was the dragon just landed on my character while he was sleeping, immediately knocking him unconscious and removing him from the fight with the adult white dragon, who then quickly thrashed the level 3 party. Man, I thought Horror the Dragon Queen had poorly balanced dragon fights. Die! I'll never stop bitching about that book. Rogue goes down in this dragon fight too. The paladin dies again. The dragon leaves, satisfied with killing one of us, and I managed to make my save, stabilizing after everything has already happened. We save Rogue. Paladin the third shows up after all the commotion, and all is well that ends well, I suppose. No permanent damage since we have an endless supply of paladin children ready on standby. Next session, we are in a city, and I see a magic item I want at a shop. The Beads of Walloping. Not a great item, but useful for a lower level character that uses a sling. However, broke. Can't afford it. I have no more money than the money we started with, since there was nothing on the orcs, in the ruins, on the road, but one quick distraction from my steel defender and a successful sleight of hand, and now I have a handful of beads. Look, no one was the wiser to my bead theft. We leave the shop on good terms, and later that session, I see wanted posters with my face on them. I asked the DM what I did, and he reminds me that I stole from a shopkeeper. And then I replied with my sleight of hand was successful. I cry upon deaf ears. Apparently, not long after I left, the shopkeeper took inventory, noticed a handful of beads were gone from the bin, and reported me personally for theft. Even though I gave no particular indication that I wanted them, I just looked at the listed price, and my save was successful. Whatever, I immediately get arrested, and others have fun planning a way to get me out, while I sit there for the rest of the session doing nothing again. Finally, the last session I played with these guys started off good. The party broke me out of jail, shockingly, goes off without a hitch, and we're free, but hiding out in the alleys until night. At one point, a wizard NPC, not Wizard, the supposed player character never met, is walking through the alley and decided to sneak up and rob me. Stealth goes well, he doesn't know I'm there. I stick my hand in his pocket, roll a sleight of hand, and another success. I quietly pull out something. I never learned what it was, and the wizard just keeps walking, letting me melt back in the shadows. Except at the end of the alley, the wizard sticks his hand in his pockets, notices the thievery, turns around, and sees me just without even rolling. Bro, stealing from people gives him night vision goggles, alright? This is a known fact! He runs up and sends me to hell with planar shift, where I come face to face with a horned devil, and obviously I get killed. After that, I left the table early and didn't come back. I kept in contact with the DM and Paladin, and it seemed the others, who were originally there, were still having fun, but it really just wasn't for me. I understand punishment for crime. I use it in my own campaigns, such as when a player character got arrested for shooting someone they were after in the middle of town, or when the party broke into the house of someone well-connected and were confronted by the sheriff. But the shopkeeper and the wizard checking to make sure nothing was stolen immediately after I took it, and knowing somehow that it had to be me, that was BS. Anyways, this isn't the worst story you've seen, but I want to send it regardless. Maybe another time I'll write about my old party members from my high school group, making everyone in his campaign racist towards my Kenku, but not towards another player's Arakakra. Hey, I get that. Some people hate crows, some people hate eagles. I hate both. Anyway, yeah, this is really annoying. Some DMs really get their hard on for the consequences of your actions. And yeah, that's okay. If there isn't consequences for what happens in the game, there's no point to playing the game. Remember, consequences can be both good and bad, but if they don't make sense, they just become contrived. And that's what this is. This person covered their tracks. They did everything right, and still they just get magically punished for even thinking of crime in the first place. And it's not like these crimes are disruptive. They're stealing a single magic item they can't afford. They're pickpocketing a random wizard they barely know. These are hardly problem player behaviors, but the DM is punishing them regardless because, I don't know, they just have a justice boner. Again, I am all for consequences, including negative ones, but only if they are damn well sensible. It was my first time ever playing Dungeons & Dragons. I got invited by, quite literally, a friend of a friend. In this specific situation, this girl, the barbarian, invited my best friend, the sorcerer, and I to join her friends. Let's call him David, his new campaign he wanted to start. The players were then us three and this other girl who could only join us every few sessions due to a busy schedule. She's not important, and David was going to be DMing. Now, two things are important to note here. This was not only Sorcerer and I's first time playing, it was just our first interaction with D&D ever. We knew nothing about it. We hadn't watched anything explaining the game, Nothing. Total newbies. Which the other players and the DM were aware of and okay with. We live in an area that is mostly French speaking, but Sorcerer and I are bilingual. And so for the past 20 years we've known each other, we've often spoken with both French and English, sometimes switching between both languages in the middle of the sentence. That's super cool. Bilingual people are cool. I wish I was bilingual people. The sessions are going to happen over Zoom calls since we all live in different cities. In the group chat we created, David welcomed us and immediately told us we needed to create characters. He did not tell us how to do anything, but instead sent us the PDF file of the player's handbook, which was in English, by the way, which is important for later, and sent a private message to him with questions if needed. Now, as most of you know, the player's handbook is pretty extensive and very overwhelming to newcomers, so you can imagine my best friend and I were left a little shocked with the lack of directions. Bro could have sent them D&D Beyond. Why would you just dump a textbook in someone's lap and say, good luck? Ugh, the smoothest of brains. Look, we did our best and create characters we were proud of. For our first session, Session 0, Sorcerer came over to my place so we could do the Zoom call together and maybe help each other out. David led us through the rest of our character creations by making us roll our stats. He would tell us which dice to roll, not explaining why we were rolling them, make us tell him our number, and he would tell us what to write in a very robotic voice. Yet again, never explaining what this was or why we were doing any of it. I tried asking him more questions, but he brushed them off, saying, "We'll come back to it later," which we never did.
Man, this is some really cool stuff. So now that I have a player's handbook, can you answer some of the questions that I have about the game? You're gonna answer some of the questions I have about the game, right?
After our character sheet was filled out, we went right into the story. He didn't explain anything else and told us just to act and do things our characters would do, and would get mad if we didn't answer or act quickly enough. Now keep in mind, the game was being played in French, and we were all speaking French with each other. But this process was also extremely confusing to Sorcerer and I, since nothing was just being explained to us in general. So every time we got confused with something, we'd ask questions to each other, using our normal way of speaking, aka a mix of French and English, and this would absolutely piss off the Dungeon Master. Why?
언니, have you mentioned this before? 어디서 얘기한 적 있어?
Never speak English to me again, you sour bitch.
Obviously, that's a clip of someone speaking Korean, but seriously, can you imagine getting upset over something so innocuous? He kept saying we're in a French area and therefore we should all be speaking French, and we need to stop saying anything in English. Now, I would understand somewhat. I think it's stupid either way. It could be frustrating to him to have a foreign language spoken at his table if he didn't understand it himself, but we knew he could speak, understand, and read English because the only information he sent us, the player's handbook, it was all in English. On top of that, we never spoke to him in English ever, just between ourselves. It was a habit. His DMing style was just him telling us what to do all the time, and his superiority complex eventually tired me out. I lasted 3 sessions of having him remind us every 10 minutes how great French was and how lucky we were to live in a beautiful French area, and getting annoyed if words in English were ever said. Which, by the way, he also sent us our character sheets in English. Anyways, looking back on this now, it feels so incredibly stupid and pointless. Clearly he had issues. I had not engaged with D&D again for 2 years until I started watching videos and live streams of people playing TTRPGs. And now I run a homebrew TTRPG for my friends, Sorcerer included, and I run them in English, with French, or with any other language. They're all welcome at my table. I haven't had problems since. I obviously showed a clip of a woman speaking Korean in English, not French in English, but the point is that people speak different languages. I was raised in a household that spoke a lot of Tagalog. It never bothered me even if I was unfamiliar with the language. In fact, it made me want to become familiar with the language. Trust me, I understand the fear of hearing words and not understanding what they mean. But there are more mature ways to handle that. You can simply ask, hey, what's going on? Especially since what these people are complaining about is very reasonable. They are brand new to the game and want their questions answered. And they're simply asking each other what's going on. If you want to figure out what they're saying, just ask. But frankly, the guy's snobby way of running the game for brand new players is a whole other issue in itself, and a much bigger one in my mind. Hey, that's a wrap. If you guys enjoyed, then you might enjoy this episode of Critical Failure, where we talked about a DM who had similar manipulative tendencies to our first story. It's linked up in the cards, but before you go, please do leave a like on this one and subscribe to Crispy's Tavern so you don't miss any of our cards as it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, you can go down in the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment. Is this a cult? So let me make it to the end of the video. Hey, by the way, if you have your own horror stories, you can send them directly to us. There's an email down in the description down below. Send your stories our way for a chance to be featured in one of these videos. But hey, even if you don't have any stories, that's like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you all next time. Farewell.